Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We're about to take a really fascinating journey into the physical world to understand the colossal forces that shape our planet. Today, we're unlocking the secrets of Earth's living giants, mountains. Now, we often look at them as these static, unchanging backdrops to our lives, but as we're going to see today, they're actually incredibly dynamic engines that sustain life on Earth.
But right before we get into the rocks and the geology, I want you to think about this number, 50%. Mountains actually provide the freshwater needs for more than half of humanity. Just let that sink in. Every single day, billions of people rely on these invisible processes happening way up high on these peaks just to have water to drink, to grow food, and, well, to survive. So why does this matter to you? Because no matter where you live, your life is intimately connected to these high-altitude landscapes.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with Section 1, the birth of mountains, followed by 2, a case study on the mighty Andes. Then we'll explore 3, hubs of biodiversity, and 4, Earth's natural water towers. Finally, we'll wrap up with 5, human impacts and threats.
All right, kicking things right off with Section 1, the birth of mountains, looking at the tectonic forces at play.
So, to really understand mountains, we have to look deep beneath the surface at our moving tectonic plates. Our Earth's crust isn't just one solid shell, right? It's broken into these massive tectonic plates that are constantly in motion, colliding, pulling apart, or grinding past one another. And when they crash together, we get what geologists call orogeny. That's the primary mountain-building process. It typically happens at a convergent plate margin, which is just a fancy way of saying two plates are smashing into each other. When they do, the Earth's crust literally buckles and folds under this unimaginable pressure. This whole process involves intense folding, faulting, and often some fiery volcanic activity as magma gets forced up from the mantle.
But here's the thing, not all mountains are born the exact same way. We have volcanic mountains, like composite or shield volcanoes, which are formed by erupting magma along plate boundaries or hotspots. Then there are fold mountains. These are created when continental plates collide and buckle. Actually, think of pushing a rug together on a hardwood floor so it wrinkles up. That's exactly it. We also have block mountains, formed when tectonic plates stretch and fracture, causing these giant fault blocks to drop down or tilt up into what geologists call horsts and grabens. And finally, we have uplifted passive margins, which are essentially giant anticlinical folds on the edges of continents.
Which brings us to Section 2, the mighty Andes, a really incredible geological case study.
We're going to move our focus down to the South American continent to look at a specific extreme example. The Andes represent the perfect case of an active, ongoing orogeny. It's caused by the Nazca Plate and part of the Antarctic Plate sliding directly beneath the South American Plate. And it is huge! At a staggering 8,900 kilometers, it's the longest continental mountain range in the entire world. To put that into perspective for you, that's roughly the driving distance from New York City all the way down to Buenos Aires. No way, right? It forms this continuous, incredibly high backbone right along the western edge of South America.
And because of that sheer scale, its geographical footprint is absolutely massive. It spans across 7 sovereign nations: Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela. And because it covers so much latitude top to bottom, scientists generally group it into major climatic divisions. You got the tropical Andes up in the north, the dry Andes right in the center, and the wet Andes down in the south.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between these zones within a single mountain range. The dry Andes experience hyper-arid conditions. We're talking sporadic rain and wild temperature swings. But actually, this very dryness is what allowed massive saltpeter and lithium deposits to form. In fact, the region holds the world's largest lithium reserves. But then, you travel down to the wet Andes, and the environment completely flips. It's rainy, it's cool, and it features these massive glaciers that, in the far south, descend all the way down to the ocean. That wild variation in climate perfectly sets up Section 3, hubs of biodiversity, life in the extremes.
So we're shifting the narrative here from rock, ice, and geology over to the living, breathing ecosystems that somehow manage to thrive on these steep slopes and in these really extreme conditions. I mean, it takes staggering resilience to bloom against a backdrop of harsh, snow-streaked rock. Because mountains rise through different atmospheric levels, they encompass a huge variety of climates. In fact, almost every single biome type on Earth, from tropical rainforests at the base to arid polar ice caps at the summit, can be found in mountains.
And this brilliantly illustrates the amazing result of all that variety.
A full quarter, 25%, of all land-based life on our planet is supported by mountain ecosystems. They contain nearly half of the world's biodiversity hotspots. It is absolutely crucial to understand that mountains aren't just barren rocks. They are buzzing, vibrant engines of genetic diversity.
Now, if you're wondering what you should take away from all this, just think about your last meal. 6 of the 20 plant species that supply 80% of the entire world's food originated directly in these mountain ecosystems. We're talking about global staples here: potatoes, tomatoes, apples, maize, barley, and sorghum. So your daily diet is directly indebted to the unique, rich biodiversity of mountain regions. Pretty cool, right?
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, Earth's natural water towers, the mountain water cycle.
We already know mountains are biodiversity hotspots, but they also act as giant physical engines for the planet's water supply. Let's dive into the hydrology of mountains and how they literally squeeze water from the sky. This invisible process starts when moist air masses travel across the land and hit the massive physical barrier of the mountain. With nowhere to go but up, the air is forced upward into cooler altitudes. As it cools, the moisture condenses. This condensation forms thick rain clouds, leading to heavy precipitation. And finally, gravity takes over. That water rushes down as runoff, replenishing the streams, rivers, and groundwater aquifers in the valleys below.
So the crucial point is this. In places where water is scarce, semi-arid and arid regions, this single cycle can generate up to 90% of the total freshwater available in the entire watershed. Mountains are basically capturing the scant moisture in the air and delivering it down to the lowlands. Major rivers globally have their headwaters at these peaks. It's just a brilliant natural distribution system.
Sadly, that distribution system brings us to our final chapter, Section 5, Human Impacts and Threats, a Fragile Future.
We have to zoom out for a second and examine how our own activities are currently threatening both the water outputs and the fragile biodiversity we've just been talking about. When we look at the data, we see several primary anthropogenic or human-caused threats. We see agricultural intensification, where upstream irrigation drastically reduces downstream flow and introduces pesticides. We see mining activities, which, are historically vital to economies in ranges like the Andes, but they do pose risks of water contamination. We see rapid land use changes, where replacing forest with concrete drives severe erosion. And finally, climate change, which is forcing plant species to migrate further and further uphill into smaller territories just to survive the warming temperatures.
I want you to consider this profound reality. Mountains are often sanctuaries for plants and animals long gone from the more transformed lowlands. Because they're steep and rugged, mountains have historically protected species from the intense human transformation of flatlands. For instance, the last mountain gorillas survive only among the volcanoes of Rwanda and Uganda. They really are irreplaceable refuges.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a crucial question to think about. How can we better balance our growing thirst for resources with the survival of Earth's natural water towers? As our population grows, the demand for fresh water and food increases, but the capacity of these mountains is definitely limited. Understanding the science behind how they're formed, how they sustain life, and how they water the Earth is the very first step in protecting them. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. Keep looking up, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.